Good God, is this thing ugly. And I'm in love with it. Dan here, D Speed Shop. So 55 Nomad as per usual. I'm gonna miss this door. The whole car was painted with this lace and stuff, and it had a different front clip on it, but it's too bad. Because it did look kind of neat. Now it looks very out of place with all the new metal and stuff on it. Anywho, last video we did a bunch of wiring and put some carpet and stuff in, new column. I do want to carry on with a lot of the wiring and maybe get this thing so it'll, you know, bump over with the key and stuff like that. Get power to the fuse block, all that kind of stuff. On the way home from work, just spending money. I bought, this is where I'm at. I bought brand new parts. This car, again, everyone keeps telling me in the comments, I feel like you guys are like enablers here, that the car's good, spend money on it. I'm spending money on it. It's driving me crazy. So instead of putting some junky old starter and junky old distributor, which, I mean, I've got like miscellaneous distributor caps there, and I got all sorts of stuff. I'm putting brand new things in, but this Performance World stuff, that's what I'm got for distributor. This is nice stuff. It's like a knockoff billet, you know, all in one, ready to go, one wire hookup. You're done, so that'll be sweet. I got some universal plug wires. I just kind of guessed. Hopefully these will fit. I don't know what I'm doing with exhaust yet. Currently has ram horns. I think my buddy Josh is going to loan me a set of fender well headers, which I really want. But who knows if they'll fit around all the braking stuff, and they might be more of a hassle and they're worth to add later on. But I want them. So we'll do that, and then I got this PowerMaster mini starter. Now, there's a couple different options. These are the ones I like. So they're adjustable to that many. You can clock it like, you know, any way you want. It has to be in those whatever 1-inch increments. They do have some that are infinitely adjustable. I've had those ones come loose in the past. Could be me as a problem. Hi Dan, I make problems. But these are good. So I mean, I think all the stuff I got today was like, I don't know, 350 bucks or something like that. And I got some other odds and ends. But it'll be brand new, suits the car, yada yada yada. We're gonna carry on. I did pick up a bunch of miscellaneous wiring and stuff so we can run power to the distributor, ground cables, and all that. I did work a little bit actually before I started filming. I ran the fuel line to the back. We hooked it up here. I did kink this one just a little bit, so we may need to change that. But we got fuel line to the back. I picked up a proper tube nut, so we got the brake line running to the back. Both the brake line and the fuel line are just curled up, sitting back there. Nothing is hooked up yet, but we're getting there. So I think what I'm going to do now is go through this rat's nest and determine what's going to be to the motor and what is going to lights and whatnot. We're not obviously going to do lights yet, but I'd like to get the motor wired, and then I can put the front clip on, because I think after this, like, I got to start working on the headlight caps and the rad cradle and whatnot. Then we have to fit a radiator and all those things. But at this point, it's nice having everything off to get to everything. For space-wise, you're not reaching over a fender, but I don't think there's any need anymore to have the front clip off, so we can start putting it back together. So those are my thoughts. Bear with me, we'll get you on the tripod and we'll start dissecting this front wiring and start looping some stuff. It should be a good night. I think we can get a little bit of stuff done, and I already know I'm going to run out of parts because I've forgotten certain things. What I like to do is run a fuse block beside the battery. That way, the main power, I think it's this, well, this one right here. This is what goes to the fuse block, and either at the very least I'll fuse that, but a lot of times it's nicer just to have a little fuse block right beside with, you know, 4 blade fuses. Then you can run a few things off with constant power. If you have a relay for like a electric fan or whatever, you can tag power there, and makes life a little easier. So I gotta get one of those, and I'm sure I'll need miscellaneous stuff along the way. But anyways, let's get sorted out and see what I forgot to buy. Okay, so these are all the wires. I just looped some stuff around. So a couple videos ago I put out, well, the motor and stuff like that. And actually just came out a few days ago when I answering comments. But, you know, I appreciate everyone was happy I picked a small block Chevy. I was worried, well, not that I was really worried, I was going to do what I want anyways. But, you know, LS the world and all that, and it's just, I don't know. It ain't my jam. Like my buddy, Boosted Lifestyle Kyle, just loved those LS motors. And as cool as they are, I don't know. I just don't feel they look right in this. And actually, a lot of people like the ram horns, so that's kind of, they were temporary, but now I'm thinking they might be permanent. The other thing I got to deal with is, I think it's got a short water pump and whatnot, and the way it's set up, the long water pumps have the two bosses for like a standard alternator here. This one's going to be off to the side probably, or by a fancy bracket. I kind of hate those because they cause like a real long belt for the whip, which usually causes issues. Anyway, back to wiring. So now we need a few of these wires. So this is everything that's going to go obviously through the firewall, but there's some like this one here, which is going to be our, they're all labeled, but that's solenoid power. So that's what gets power to the fuse block. You could run off the battery or the starter, whichever you really want there. This one here is alternator power, so this will be the heavy one, like the charge wire. So we're just going to kind of loop over the motor, everything that's going to be used for the motor. Now, I've done these harnesses enough to know kind of what they are color code, and honestly GM has used, well, in this era maybe, that this kind of harness is for like 70s-ish stuff. The code is always the same. So purple, starter trigger. Pink is what is pink? Coiled. Oh, I knew it. I should have said it. So that'll be there. White, alternator exciter wire. Oh, a little tangled there. Gray is fan. Purple is starter. I said that, right? I said it. I said it. I wish you guys could talk back here. I'd feel less crazy. So now all that we're left with is this. And let's just double check. Left front signal. High beam. Horn. Signal. Left low beam. Arc lights, and then gray is fan. So these ones here are basically going to run up the, you got to pretend there's an inner fender right here, because there will be. They'll run up the inner fender through the firewall and then split from there wherever they're going to go. So these are the only ones we really need for the motor. And I mean, on a typical Tri-5 Chevy, they just run right there. So the only thing that is the confusion right now, which I'll just leave long, we're not going to use anyways, will be alternator, because like for instance the exciter wire, you run it around there and then you just run it, kind of beside the intake to the alternator, depending on what side it's going to be on. So we'll leave this one long, but otherwise we should be able to start kind of terminating these and getting them where they should be. I will pop underneath real quick and bolt that starter up, which you'll actually be able to see from the side. And then we can run a power wire. I got some tailor-made ones. I like them instead of kind of making my own. So we got 12 volts, go directly down to the main lug on the starter. We'll ground it to the body. That's Tri-5s, 5s and 6s with the battery under the hood. The ground went directly to the body, which, whatever, it was what it was. Then we can ground the body to the frame. You can then ground the motor to the frame, which I'll do as well, even though we're solid mounted. It doesn't hurt. Add grounds. I learned years ago, and Murr taught me, of course, grounds are pretty important. It can do all sorts of funny things if you don't have a good ground. So to spend the extra few dollars in grounds is key. And if you're ever having electrical issues, a little tactic Murr always used to do, and I do it too now, is use a set of jumper cables and like put the battery like right to the engine block or right to the frame, wherever it may be, so you have a good ground. You eliminate all the other wiring. If it fixes your problem, you have a bad ground. So we'll get this starter in and we'll start cooking. Starter is in. We have the main power lug on. This right here will be the trigger wire from the key itself. Obviously that's that there. This is the ground. I'm running it right to one of these mounts here. Just use a jam nut. Got that taken care of. We got the body grounded to the frame. And like I said, I ran out of cables. I'll go buy another one. But from the cylinder head to the chassis, to the chassis, just so everything's got a good ground. These are the two wires we're going to be working on. So This one will have to go either to the battery or to the starter. It doesn't really matter because they're both the same. And this will be the trigger, so that will go to the little connector there. I do have to run out because I want to get some heat shrink connectors and a little fuse block, a few little odds and ends. I don't have any oil. I should have got some of that. Just have in here, you know, just to kind of roll it over, find top dead center. Not the end of the world, but I like to have some oil in it. I got to tighten up the oil pan, you know, kind of odds and ends like that. But then once we get that going, we'll be able to trigger it with the Merlmatic and jump start it, jump start it, turn it over, and then really I can actually hook the key up. Pretty simple. It's very easy on this thing, and get the wires run, because I mean the wiring's gonna be all run there, but there's no taillights, there's no headlights, there's none of that, so that's not going anywhere for right now. Oh, I need zip ties. Remind me on the trip, because we're not gonna hook the wires and all that up. We'll have it all where we want it to be, and maybe tape it all up and do those things, but the fenders are going to come on and off 10 more times here. Same with the taillights, no point doing that. Under the hood or under the dash, we could do the dash and all that. I do have a bezel downstairs, so I can probably wire that up. And we can do the column, the signals, and all that stuff, but I mean, kind of is what it is. So I'm going to make a quick run, parts store, before they close. It's like 8:30, so we got to get there in a hurry, and then we'll come back, keep jamming. So I came home, and I terminated a few ends. And while I was there, I was like, you know what? Let's just bump this thing over, put some oil in the motor. Not that it's going to do anything, there's no distributor, but, you know, just kind of crank it over. So I hooked up a jumper, goes directly from the battery to the trigger on the starter. I'm like, okay, what the hell? While I was out, what I forgot to do is buy a ground to go from the motor to the chassis. But I thought, the ground through the solid motor mounts are probably fine. Nothing's working, nothing's working. And as funny as it is, what I just said earlier, check your grounds. So I just got a jumper cable to go right to the negative. I'm just going to hook it up to the motor mount bolt. Done nothing else. Check your grounds. So I'm an idiot. I'm angry, and that's the way she goes. So I think what I'm going to do now is just kind of clean up, and we'll probably finish this tomorrow. I mean, we know everything works. Well, the motor turns over. And, you know, we got power running through it. Obviously, with the ground, we have, that means there's power going to the box. I just put a inline fuse to it, but there's no fuse in it, so there's actually no power there. But at least at this point now, I'll clean up. Tomorrow, we'll bump it over. We'll find top dead center. We'll dump into the distributor. I was actually just looking there where the oil feed for a pressure gauge would go. It's open. I don't have a gauge here, so I got to get a plug for that just for the time being. Not the best, but what are you gonna do? We can set the timing, or you know, ballpark timing, static time it, get the distributor in, and then, you know, put the fenders on and all that stuff, and then maybe we'll just dump a little bit of fuel down the carburetor, see if it lights off, and call it a day. Or maybe we'll see if we can get it hooked up through the key and make a little bit of throttle linkage. We'll do something like that. It's time for a win. This thing's been kicking my ass. I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, it's the next day. I brought the fenders in to cool or warm up overnight, so they're just kind of sitting on there. I put a new ground strap on, so that's all proper. So I think what we're going to do now is find top dead center. We can drop into the distributor, put the plugs on. We could then either hot wire it, or I might just, at this point, hook up to the key. Probably isn't the end of the world. And what else? I got an oil pressure gauge. I got just a little cheapo one for $19, just so we can kind of see what's going on. And what else do I got? I got an oil filter for it. I think that's about it. I haven't got the transmission hooked up. I don't have any cooler lines. I don't have a cooler, nothing of those things. So I think we'll just kind of push it back, the converter back, sorry, from the ring gear. So it'll be okay. I mean, there's no coolant in it. There's no nothing. We're not going to run it for very long. And I don't think I'm going to hook the fuel system up. I still got some welding to do. So we might just kind of bottle feed it a little bit, make sure it runs, and then call her a day. Then I can, on the next video, put the front clip on and start doing all that stuff. Plan? Plan. Okay, so, where got my magic starter? So we got this now, and it'll, it's good, gentle. Sure, clearly needs to be shimmed, but for what we're doing, trying to find top dead center, it'll be good enough. Okay, so we heard that, but just started to blow my finger off, which is good. The time mark's right there, or the balancer mark. Oh, there we go. So that's 0. That's pretty close, actually. So we got our pretty much, I don't know what this is. That is 0, so that's probably like 8 or 10 degrees. So we're probably pretty dang close. At this point now, we can drop the distributor in, run some plug wires, and go from there. Oh, spark plugs. I can do spark plugs. Not the end of the world, but I'd like to get a set. I feel like we're going to get a bunch done here, but still have to do another parts run no matter what we do. Okay, I'll get that distributor unboxed. Quick HEI tutorial. So, as we saw, we bumped it over, so we were on the compression stroke of number 1, and when this timing mark hits this little mark right there, that means you're top dead center number 1. So we advanced the timing a little bit. We're probably, I don't know, 8 or so degrees, give or take. So that's where the motor is set. So now, pop the distributor in, and I marked here to here. That's going to be our number 1. You're only working with number 1. So when the cap goes on, those line up, and I marked on the intake as well, the little mark where number 1 is. So now at this point, when this goes on, I've gotta just twist this out of the way. Oh, pulling that one at the same time. Gentle. Okay. So now when this goes on, man, I need those head cams. See how this now, like the distributor itself is loose, but it's locked onto the housing. So we know that. So if that mark and that mark and that mark all line up, and we tighten everything down, the thing should fire to life at 8 or so degrees of initial timing is my plan anyway. Now the reason I marked the intake and it was tighten it down because as you can see it's hard to get a screw. You have to get these 4 around the back. So sometimes what you gotta do is twist it, tighten it, twist it, and then you get the other ones and then you can line her back up and you're in the ballpark. I did a timing video, I've done it many times, so I actually did a specific timing video which made some sense, I think. So if you want to go back and watch that, you can. Otherwise, we'll get that locked down. We'll put on the plug wires, run out and get some spark plugs. I'm going to clean up a bunch of this wiring, put an oil filter on, put the gauge, hook the gauge up. At this point now, with the distributor in, the distributor, so the way it is, the camshaft has a gear on the back, which turns the distributor, and at the bottom of the distributor is a little keyway, which turns the oil pump. So it all kind of works together. So at this point now, we should, in theory, hook up an oil pressure gauge, just bump it over by hand, or like with the burp, 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 and it should produce oil pressure. And then spark plugs in, and then, I mean, this is the proper coil wire, but if we just run 12 volts to the distributor, right off the battery, hot wire it, boom, she should fire up with a little bit of fuel in it. So I think that's what we're gonna do. Finish this up, grab spark plugs, make it run, and then call it. I worked hard the last couple days, and I want a nice win. I want to hear this thing make noise. Then we can start working on bodywork, cleaning up, and I gotta get those wheel wells done. I really don't want to do it, but after I hear the victory of the small block Chevy, I think I'll want to do it. Okay, so oil pressure hooked up, distributor in, plugs, new plugs, wiring run, cleaned up just a little bit. There's still a pile of junk, and I want to get all this cleaned up before we fire it up. But I did check this. Now bear in mind, I know the starter's not shim right, but I already did this. Crank it over, and it has oil pressure. So 25 pounds on crank, just like that that's fine. I'm sure I'll have lots when it's actually running, so it's only turning over at a couple hundred RPM. Yeah, we gotta de-fire hazard this a little bit, move everything around, and go from there. So I'll get everything cleaned up, then we'll come back and we'll run this thing, huh? That sounds like it should be a good time. Alright, so we got our bottle full of gasoline. Everything's kind of cleaned up. You get ready to fire this thing up. Oh, it's gonna be good. But first I gotta weld in these wheel tubs. If I don't do it before I fire it up, I'm never gonna do it, so sorry about this. Anyway, we got both sides to do. They're not too bad. You can see it's a little patch quilty. I gotta grind that down. I'll then seam seal it. The factory does have a big seam the whole way down, but we have this little hole on both sides into the brand new rockers, so we'll trim it up, put a little plate, weld it on, and we're done. Well, then we gotta seam seal it and undercoat it. So we'll do that real quick. I'll film this side, I'll do the other side, then we'll start it up until I find something else to do. There we have it. Not too bad, eh? This little section right there, that was old undercoating just went over, but it was all patchy. It looks alright. So we got that done. I finished the fuel line, even though I don't have a feed to it, and not that I really need gas in it at this point. We got no radiator, we got no belt system and all that on it, so it is what it is. I do actually have a old copper rad, but I don't know if it's any good. I took the tires off. These are from the Widow, the summer tires. So I took those off and put them on these wheels. Looks cool. I don't know. I want to drop down the ground, so I'm not reaching over the fenders, because they're just kind of temporarily on there, just with a few miscellaneous nuts and bolts. But we should be good to go. Like I said, I'm just going to prime the carburetor. We got no actual fuel to it. We got no water. We got no care. But we'll see if she runs. Oh yeah, I should probably tighten that up. All right, let's drop this thing down. See if she runs. We're on the ground. We got our chock. Transmission's still not hooked up whatsoever. Oil's in it. We had oil pressure at crank. We should have the timing all set. I mean, now I've rolled it over. The marks are all out to lunch, but it should, in theory, work. So now what we're gonna do, I have this little alligator clip. So we have that going to the distributor. So basically that pink wire I had, it'll have 12 volts power to it under 12 volts on and crank, which will trigger the little distributor. So this is one of those one-wire distributors. Takes one wire. The plug wires are just kind of ran. I got to decide what I want to do there, if I want to make a loom. But for now, they work. I mean, one's touching the exhaust manifold. We're not going to run it very long, obviously. We've got no water in it. Yeah. Let's see what happens. So, we'll just fill up the bowls a little bit. Gentle, gentle. It should be okay. Okay, we have accelerator pump. Oh yeah, I had this zip tie popped off. Just to hold the choke open. I don't need that for any reason. Should be decent, I'm thinking. So we have no return spring or nothing like that, so we gotta be aware of a few things. Hook the battery up. That's good. So now, if we hook this 12 volts up, this will put power to the coil. So now, basically it's turn the key, which we're going to use the bump start. Give her a little sauce to start, eh? See what happens. Okay, well that's a good sign. It runs. At 50 pounds oil pressure. Oh. It's smoky in here. And open manifold sound. Freaking terrible. There's no way around it. We need headers on this thing in the worst way. So I don't want to run this thing for hours and hours with no water in it, obviously. Yeah, we'll have to deal with that next. But we got a runner, a transmission I'm extremely confident in. I bought a few of them. Rebuilt units, we can't go wrong with that. So I think we're gonna focus on some other stuff here. But all we gotta do is bolt the transmission, the converter, to the ring gear, run some lines, cooler lines, and we're good. I did buy a universal kickdown and throttle linkage type cable. These Tri-5s, they originally had a rod for adjustment, so we got all those things taken care of, but motor runs. Let it air out in here, and we'll do a little walk around. What's next? On the next video. Well, there we have it. We have a runner. Now, obviously, no timing was set, no anything on the carburetor, just how I got it, dumping fuel down it. Clearly running rich, my eyes are still burning, but just dumping a bunch of fuel down the carburetor in a small area, I think we'll do that. But it runs. So that's all that really matters. I've seen the wing up pretty good. No issues there. I'm happy with it. Again, I don't like running them too long without any water in it. And actually, I got to get under there and double check all the oil pan bolts and all that sort of stuff for leaks. It had 50 pounds of oil pressure there, you know, kind of just off idle. So good running motor. Didn't smoke the place out. It's rich, but obviously it's not burning a bunch of oil and all those things. Didn't seem to clatter, make a bunch of noise. Obviously, open exhaust, kind of hard to hear things, but is what it is. Yeah, we need headers on this thing or something like that. I hate regular exhaust manifolds. It just doesn't sound blah, 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 blah. But there we go. So the wheels now are on this thing. You know, the tires are a little bit bigger. Nomads, I will say, 55. They do have that unique shape. It's a 1 year only thing. They all kind of sit like this. I'd like to maybe lower it a little bit. I know everyone in the comments, don't make it a gasser, this and that. I get it. Obviously it's not going to be a gasser, but I do like the look. Nose high, ass down. The wheels actually are spaced pretty good. Like the body's pretty equal on both sides. You could probably roll the lip a little bit. We could drop this thing. Obviously there's a fair bit of travel. We got what we're doing with springs. This thing, the sedan, actually got to go look at the other frame. I still have it. The sedan delivery had 6 leaves, a 6-leaf pack. I think that's a wagon thing, so I think cars are 5. So that might drop it down a little bit. That being said, maybe Nomads would be the same anyways. I don't know. I've got to go look at that. And ultimately, it's irrelevant. What's going to look cool? Also having the glass in it and the seats and a tank of fuel. Like everything will start slowly but surely kind of weighing this thing down a little bit. But looks cool. I dig it. So up next, now it's a runner. We're going to go back to doing some metal work. The front clip's going to be on. I'd like the front clip to stay on after the next video. So I think step 1 will be addressing this situation. I do have another core support. I believe it's butchered, and I believe it's a V8 one. So the V6 ones had the radiator on the front side of the core support, which just gives you more room. As you can see, like if the rad was behind it, we'd already be running into the fan and whatnot. Now, partially my fault, moving the motor 3/4 of an inch ahead, so the distributor will fit. You just compound the problem. So moving the motor ahead, you get an HEI in without destroying the firewall. Win. Modify the oil pan. That's because the oil pan that we got, if we had a Chevy 2 oil pan, wouldn't be a problem. But mechanical fan into the radiator becomes an issue. But if you put the rad on this side, it leaves lots of room where the fan will actually kind of be inside the core support, or electric fan, or whatever we're going to do. That's irrelevant. So I think we'll probably piece the other one apart. This looks like it's still, kind of straight and everything lines up. So if we simply put the other piece in, then cut this junk out, the radiator will be in. We can clean this up, paint it black. That'll be good. The inner fenders, like I said before, they've actually been sandblasted. I mean, they're a little bit of junk, but a little wire wheeling. Take care of those, and those can be painted. On this car, we're going to paint everything from the inside semi-gloss black. So once the fenders come off, we can paint on the sides there, up in here, up in the cowl, or whatever it is up in there. Get that all taken down and painted black. And this will be the big job, is fender caps. So I had one I bought a while ago. One I found used. I think it was this one. Yeah, this Dan Truck one. A guy had bought it and never used it. Dan Truck, I never buy. Dan Truck's like name brand stuff, so I bought it used. Yeah, but this stuff here, I have a light obvious. It's all full of mud and filler. So these Tri-5s always rot out because the inner fenders are terrible. They're not like a standard, well, as you can see, they block the motor off, but the tips of the fenders, this is all, what is that? That looks like aluminum foil and screws holding it down. So what happens is, obviously the wheel being in there is whipping the dirt around, and it all gets piled up and it fits in that cavity. This cavity right there fits in there, sits for 60 years and rots itself out, and then people just load it full of filler. So it shouldn't be too big of an issue. It's missing the structure on the top just a little, which I actually think I have a replacement piece for that as well. Is this side just as bad? Yeah. But whatever. These are the screws that hold in the headlight bucket. So we'll start doing that as well. Get those on there, get them traced out, get them cut out, welded in, and we'll have one seam. The rest of the fenders are in really nice shape. They're not all rotten out on the bottom and everything there. So that's the next plan. Get that taken care of. Inside painted, bolted down, valence in, core support in. I think I have a hood in the backyard. These fenders would have had a hood with them, but I don't know what shape it's in, so we'll see how that goes. But then we have a grill, we have the valence, I think I have bumpers. Start kind of slowly but surely putting this thing together and go from there. But thanks for watching. As always, we got a runner. Thanks for buying me a running motor, guys. Comment below, subscribe to the channel, blah, 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 and I'll see you on the next video. Fenders.